13th, 2023 at 5 p.m. I'll call this meeting to order. The mayor is unable to attend tonight's meeting, therefore I'm sitting in his chair and I will try and conduct it as well as he does. Please note that this meeting is being broadcast and recorded. Recordings will be available on the town's YouTube channel. We acknowledge that this land on which we are gathered today is part of the ancestral land of the Chippewa, Ottawa, and Potawatomi peoples, referred to collectively as the Anishinaabe. Anishinaabe. The second time I've sort of messed it up, but I have practiced it again. It is through the connection of the Anishinaabe with the spirit of the land, water, and air that we recognize their unique cultures, traditions, and values. Together as treaty people, we have a shared responsibility to act with respect for the environment that sustains all life, protecting the future for those generations to come. I would ask anyone on council to declare a pecuniary interest at the appropriate time. Do we have any delegations, clerk?
Not this evening, workshop.
Do we have any business arising from previous meetings?
You want to speak to me? Okay, I'll speak to that, your worship. So the last regular council meeting, Councilor Rodriguez suggested she would like to bring forward a notice of motion. So we're just noting it here on business arising that she's working on that. She'll be bringing that forward in January. Notice of motion will come and then you have a chance to read it and it will come back at the second meeting in January. So for council to discuss and vote on. So just wanted to make sure everyone knew that was still on the books and in the new year.
Okay, thank you. Adoption of meeting minutes. Moved by John Van Claveren, seconded by Bob Wolvette, that the minutes be adopted by council and that those confidential minutes of the closed sessions of the council remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with the exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. That will be all council meeting minutes of November 27th and November 29th, 2023, as listed in the agenda. All in favor? Any questions? I should say, I guess first, no questions? Okay, all in favor? Carried. So another motion moved by Mr. Van Claveren and seconded by Mr. Wolvett, that the minutes be adopted by council and that those confidential minutes of the closed sessions remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with the exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy. All committee meeting minutes on November 29th, 2023 for courts of revision of the Falconer, Ramsey, and Lower Aberarder Creek and the McAndrew Drain KIF branch as listed in the agenda. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay, councilors' reports. I will start over with Mr. Wolvette.
I do not have anything tonight, Madam Chair.
Okay, how about Mr. Van Claveren?
Nothing for you, Madam Chair.
And Mr. Bonji?
I'll break that and I just have two quick updates. The first one is just the Toad Special Events Committee. They had their last regular meeting of the year this past Monday, and Saturday was of course also Christmas in the Village. I just wanted to thank on behalf of the committee, all the community groups that made that possible. So including the Lions, the Lioness, the Legion, the Masons, the Plympton-Wyoming Fire Department, the Agricultural Society, and town staff. It was a communal effort and it was a great event.
And the rain stopped at the right
The
time.
rain did stop on time. The Environmental Services Committee also met last week. The larger topic of discussion was the proposed waste collection and disposal budget. The committee endorsed that and it's coming to committee next. And then at that meeting, we also briefly talked about that water main break and the boil water advisory, which is something that staff is currently investigating. But I did want to once again thank Mr. De Silva and all of staff for answering calls, knocking on doors. It was a well executed teamwork response. And that's all I had.
Thank you. Mr. Vasey?
Nothing to report. He took Christmas in the Village, so
Well, we would like to thank you for with your connection to Santa, to having him there that time and making him available at that time. It was all in your
He
hands.
was very pleased.
Very good.
It was supposed to snow. We had ordered snow, but didn't quite get
It was a
over,
little wet.
but the rain stopped, so
It did.
we alone did 480 hot dogs. So we figured there had to be 500-600 people there that. They said it's hard for Santa to see who, because you're busy, but they said it was by far the busiest one they've had, so.
But you made Santa available out at Kimwaki also for the
Yes.
Optimist Christmas, kids' Christmas party and.
I did drive him out there as well.
Yes, and yes, you did.
And he was at the Legion for breakfast.
There you go, see? I wish I had close connection with Santa like that. It's nice for you to do that.
Would you like
The
to
elf
switch
they
chairs?
provided was a little lacking, but
Is that all you have to?
That's all I
report?
have.
Thank you.
Parks and Rec tomorrow night.
Ms. Rodriguez, anything?
Yes, I just had a St. Clair Conservation Authority meeting last Thursday. Wasn't really anything exciting about it, except for discussion on the AEW Campbell House slated for demo. So, just a lot of discussion on that, so. Oh, and the McHugh Dam.
Darcy McHugh Dam?
Darcy McHugh Dam at Wallsburg Way. There's a lot of discussion on that, in a report. We have a agricultural representative on the board and you know, he was concerned about, I think it's not very used very often, maybe 5 or 6 times in I don't know how long. But when it dumps, my visual is like on August 23rd when Petrolia got dumped on from all the drainage. It ends up there in the flatlands. So a lot of people really wanted a visual. So I guess we're going on a field trip,
Oh, yeah.
go see the McHugh,
That's
Darcy
right.
McHugh Dam.
Soon or at your next summer meeting like that, when you go on your.
Oh, you know about that? See, I didn't even know about that. Yeah, they were saying, annually they do it in June, they do
Yes.
a field trip.
Yeah, they're always.
Yeah, so I think they're trying to align it with that.
Okay. Good. So is that all?
Yes, thank you.
And all I have to, I think we discussed Mr. Santa. And I just wanted to thank him very much for your connection with him. And then the water break, we had nothing but good reports on the water break and the way it was handled. Everybody out there so happy. They were, you know, if they didn't get a phone call, they got more than a phone call. They got personal rap on the door or an email or what letters, you know, left at the door. I haven't heard anything bad about it, so it was really handled well. So I think that's the end of the counselor's report. And we'll go on to the next item. Moved by Mr. Wolvett, second by Mr. Van Claveren, that the council remuneration claims for November 2023 be approved for payment. Any questions? If all in favor? Carried. Also update on the McFarland Drain Engineers Report, moved by Ms. Rodriguez, seconded by Mr. Bougen, that the report by Elizabeth Cummings, Drainage and Engineering Coordinator, dated December 5, 2023, regarding an update on the current engineer's report on the McFarland Drain located in Kimlaki, Ontario, that the staff be directed to provide an update to the landowners on the McFarland Drain. Are there any, would you want to discuss this at all, Elizabeth?
If council has any questions,
Any questions from council for Elizabeth on this? Oh, Mr. Wolbert,
The dam on private property. Which I gotta be careful to say here. Don't want to give any location. Has that been resolved?
it's still there. The dam is still there. The engineer is working with the owner of the private property to come up with a solution that will accommodate both the dam Better flow and drainage. We're gonna make farming good.
They'll try to make it work, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor of? Carried. Thank you. Moved by Mr. Wilbet, seconded by Ms. Rodriguez, that the report by Aaron Korchek, clerk, dated November 27, 2023, regarding a contract for animal pickup and pound services be received, and that bylaw 136 of 2023 being a bylaw to enter into an agreement with the Sarnia District Humane Society, taken as having been read 3 times, and the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the said bylaw accordingly. Are there any questions on this bylaw? Or this contract, rather? No questions? Oh, Bob.
Who has been doing this job for us for the last few years?
Your worship. So we've had pound services with the Humane Society for some time. But we haven't had a middle person to do pickup since I've worked for the town. We've only ever had to pick up 1 dog. The rest of the time, usually bylaw enforcement shows up and then the owner's out looking for them. The neighbor says they belong to this house. They've always just been taken care of. But with more population and more dogs, we need someone that can be there to pick them up and take them if needed. So we worked on this contract with other local municipalities.
So there's no, unless there's a service, there's no fee.
Correct. Pay for use, yep.
Any other questions? All in favor? Okay, sorry. So user fees. Moved by Mr. Van Claveren, seconded by Ms. Rodriguez, that the report by Ella Flynn, Executive Assistant Deputy Clerk, dated November 27, 2023, regarding 2024 comprehensive fees and user charges bylaw be received, and that bylaw 135 of 2023 be taken as having been read 3 times and finally adopted, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the said bylaw accordingly. Are there any questions on this? Mr. Woolwood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. A10. What is a dangerous dog license? What would that be? Whose dog would that be?
I think Ella's pulling it up. I can speak to it a bit, your worship. It's in our animal control bylaw already. So if a dog is deemed dangerous, if it's, I don't remember the exact criteria, but if they bit someone or lunged at someone or several times, there's a requirement for that owner to provide insurance to the town, that they've had a higher liability insurance. They have to be in a certain size outdoor run. There's quite a lot for an owner to do if their dog's been deemed dangerous. So this is a fee that's associated with the dangerous dogs.
So
It is included in our dog licensing bylaw. It was just noticed this year that it wasn't included in the comprehensive fees bylaw. So just for transparency, it's better if it's in this comprehensive bylaw, so we can refer people to one place instead of saying, oh, by the way, there's this fee, but it's actually not in the fees bylaw.
Yeah.
So, so if we've got a dog deemed dangerous, are there special rules within the bylaw that says the dog has to be muzzled or the?
Yeah, yes, and the K, that what I just said, like fenced in, when it's outside, cannot be on leash, like there's a whole, they have to provide us with insurance. There's a whole package of things in the animal control bylaw.
Okay, that's fine, just the
They're
definition.
deemed that, yeah, there's steps to get to be deemed a dangerous dog, and then this comes after they're deemed
Have we ever had one? No, there was one in Kamalaki area,
years ago.
an issue, right?
Yep, there is, has been one since then.
any other questions about these fees? So all in favor? Carried. Now we're going to look at our budget update. Moved by Mr. Basie, second by Ms. Rodriguez, that the Report by Norma Roddick, Priest Treasurer, dated November 30th, 2023, regarding the third quarter 2023 budget update be received and filed. Are there any questions on our update? Ms. Rodriguez?
I just have two questions. One is donation for wind turbine reserve. I know we had a lot of discussion on that at budget time last year, because there was, I think, about 95,000. Whether it should stay there or not stay there, whether we could use it to reduce.
They were gonna look into it, yeah, because it
Yeah.
needed money, what we could do with it.
Right. And I don't see an amount there, so I just don't know where it is. Is it somewhere else now? It's under user charges or something. Donation
Fourth.
for,
Fourth down under user charges, or down under user charges.
yeah, why is that even there? When it says donation for,
Wonder if that's when it was being donated to each year, that line was there, but it's not, we're not putting into it anymore. The reserve is as it is.
right, I just didn't see the reserve anywhere else.
Oh,
So that's why I'm asking.
So the reserves will be in your budget book, all the whole list of reserves will be there. It's
Oh.
not usually in the budget
In
unless we're
this.
using money.
Oh, okay, thank you for that. My second question is legal fees. I took a snapshot, so I'm not sure where this is under expenses. And I think it's only what, first page in, and you highlighted it?
Yes. So we are monitoring that. It is very high and
So I'm sorry, I just want to clarify, I do remember we doubled this last year in the budget from 50,000 to 100,000. But this line item only shows 50,000.
I don't think it was doubled last year. I'm hoping to double it this year.
I just, and I do see if you go to another page where it shows the 100,000.
So there is in planning.
Okay. Maybe that's it.
So the planning has their legal fees and then general.
Yeah, I think that's
Yes.
where we doubled it.
Yeah.
Maybe. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Ms. Beatty?
The line where we're doing tax write-offs. And who decides that and what's the criteria for it?
Tax write-offs.
Yeah.
So they come to us from MPAC.
so for which taxes are to write off? Is that? Yeah, so if MPAC provides, they provide updates throughout the year after the roll book's released. And so if, for example, a house is torn down, then the assessed value of that house is removed from the property. I reduce the property taxes on that account based on what MPAC tells me, so that's a tax write-off. They're not write-offs, I'm not just giving people a discount or saying you don't have to pay that anymore. There's reductions in property taxes for legitimate reasons.
Okay, thank you. Good answer.
Mr. Wolbert, are you happy?
I am very quiet on this one. Thank you. It's excellent report.
Van Cleven?
Nothing for me. Thank you very much.
Mr. Bowden? Everyone in favor of this report? Okay, thank you. Election policy review. Moved by Mr. Van Claveren, seconded by Mr. Wolbert, that the report by Christine Houston, Deputy Treasurer Tax Collector, dated December 4th, 2023, regarding the municipal drain payment collection policy review be received, and that council direct staff to bring back an updated municipal drain assessment collection policy. So Christine has provided us with a report on debenturing, I believe. Is there any questions on that? Okay, Mr. Belgium?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have any questions necessarily, but it is a very detailed report, so thank you for this report. I guess my one question or just question for discussion purposes is I think the recommendations outlined are all very detailed and 1, 2, 3, and 4 seem relatively fair and standard. My one question regarding the 5th one is jumping from the minimum of 1,000 to 5,000 for the minimum amount eligibility to be able to debenture. I'm just wondering if it's possible to discuss a more phased approach to that minimum eligibility. So for example, 1 through 4, I think alone will have an impact, a positive impact on making sure we have this money for debentures. And then maybe we can look at in 2024, 2,500, and then it's jumped to 3,500 and 25, and then get to that 5,026. I'm just wondering if that's an option, if that makes sense for council and for staff, just for
That would be an option, yes.
just an option for discussion for council then.
Would it be a good option? Asking Christine.
It is an option, yeah.
I know, I heard that. Okay, Ms. Rodriguez? Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, I would agree with Alex on the options provided to help make it more sustainable. But I would kind of like to go or put out there a different route for the options for debenturing. The smallest amount noted being requested for a debenture on the charts provided was 1,490. Several were below the 5,000 proposed limitation mark. So that should underscore that there is some need in the community. I noticed other municipalities correlate term with value. This may prove beneficial. So for example, let's say just doing 1,500 to 3,000 over a 2-year term instead of a 3-year term, and anything over 3,000 would still remain at a 3-year term. This provides a quicker return on your investment, but it still remain pretty restrictive compared to other communities. Many are anywhere from 500 to 1,000 K on a 5-year term, and some have anything over 10K at a 10-year term. Some communities also bill cost recovery on both tax bills within the year. I think breaking up the amount not only allows for an additional quicker return, but also allows for the benefit of a smaller amount of time being borne by the ratepayer, further promoting a higher ratio of payments being collected. So I think maybe that might be an option to look at too, placing value with term. I don't want to see the, since there were 13 on the examples provided in 7 point, that total of those projects was over 7 million. Just 27% are eligible, and of that only 8% utilized it, but in the middle ground, half were below that $5,000 mark. So I think it's important not to exclude people.
Okay, so,
Madam
yes, go
Chair,
ahead.
why don't we have everyone's comments and then staff can suggest a compromise in regards to the staggering of the minimum debenture amount.
Anyone else making comments?
My only comment is, go back to the drawing boards and keep it flexible, and I think it's worth another discussion within your group to, obviously, with the comments that are coming forward. Being used, and people that are using it are below that 5,000, and tells us it's being used by that group of people, and if we up it that high, that'll eliminate the people, so I think it's a good discussion there.
Van Clyver?
I would agree. Yep.
So,
2 amendments were suggested.
Right.
One to bring it up to the suggested $5,000 over a 3 to 4 year period. The second one was to max it out at about $3,000, I think is what you suggested, Councilor Rodriguez.
In a stepped approach, or value with term, increasing from 1,000 to 1,500. The lowest seen on this chart was 1,490.
Yep.
Nobody was using below that value in the examples provided. So bringing it to 1,500 and from the 1,500 to 3,000 mark payback instead of 3 years would be 2 years. So a quicker return on the money. And then obviously leaving the 3,000 and up at the 3-year term, right? Because you have no, that's the other question I had, if I may. Putting a cap on the amount you can debenture, is that possible? Because to me, instead of at a starting point without an ending point, if you put an ending point, you really have more stability in your reserve funds.
Okay, so do you have any comments about these suggestions? Or
I
definitely-
have to look into if we could offer the different rates for different terms. I'm not sure if that is allowed, and it's, if it is administratively, that would be very complicated. I think we're trying to simplify this a bit. I think if you're gonna offer it to people, it should be the same options for everybody. And I just wanted to point out that these are averages, so this isn't necessarily the maximum and minimum, like these are the averages amounts of people who have debentured, so it's not, could be lower, it could go high, so one person could drive up the average, or one low one could really drag it down, so just wanted to make that point. And your other question?
And I do appreciate all that. It was a very in-depth, it gave me a much clearer picture of the process. And looking at it realistically, I mean, that is what anybody would use to project your future. So that's why I looked at those values. And, where can we mitigate this realistically and make it sustainable? It's a fundamental service that's been around forever. So when I looked at other municipalities and what they have in place, I did see stepped approaches, so that's why I mentioned it. What I haven't seen is a cap, so I'm not sure if a cap is an option. So in other words, just like your credit line, you can only have so much, an established credit line, right? Which I think brings more stability than the unknowns. But I think those averages are pretty realistic.
May be able to effectively put in a cap by amending the parameters of who is allowed to debenture. So a lot of times if a construction project is very large, it might be the majority of the costs are allocated to the town or a developer who has requested the project. So if we change the eligibility of who is allowed to debenture, that might also reduce the amount of debentures. So I don't know about offering a cap, but we might be able to achieve that in a different manner.
Yes, and if I understand correctly, that is in the works to be done so that we can really, because that undoubtedly had a strain unnecessarily on those reserves.
Okay, Elizabeth, you have a comment?
Yes, Your Worship, just a comment about a cap. I think that we might want to be careful about that because, the purpose of debentures is to assist people that have trouble. And a lot of times it's the farmers that have the really large bills. And if you're capping it out, that kind of defeats the purpose. It makes it better for them. And they do, sometimes it's 60, 80,000, like they're large bills. And I can see, to me, that's the people that would need it more than the person who has a $1,500 bill. But
Okay, any more comments, Mr. Wolfett?
Yeah, going through your discussion paper here, what I'm looking at and, you talk about because of the amount of drains that are taking place today, it's increased dramatically and we could be looking at over $4 million worth of, debenture loans if we accept this. The other part of it that maybe bothers me a little bit, I know we talked about totally doing away with the debenturing as an option. But the last line, it says that council chooses to continue offering debentures for Drainey Act assessments there'll be a negative impact on the town's financial position. Town will be forced to incur more liabilities in the form of bank loans, and forecasting will be more complex. The additional liabilities could eliminate the town's ability to obtain loans for future priority projects, and we all know we want to look at a lot of fairly large projects here in the next, maybe even this term of council. So that concerns me a little bit, and I just think it needs to be discussed and what kind of position that puts us in. And I'm thinking of what we'd have to borrow for even what may go on in Kamlaki there and stuff like that. So I think we need to have that part of this discussion. Just how much money we want to borrow and get ourselves into the loan situation.
You had a comment about it, Christine?
Through the chair. So one thing I want to bring up, you mentioned that we've always offered this. So I wanted to talk about why we've always offered it. So it's not mandatory for the town to offer this debenturing. However, we have in the past. The reason for that, it was kind of a win-win for property owners and the town. So for the property owners who didn't want to make the payments now, and for some reason didn't want to go to their bank to borrow the money. It was a win for them because we offered them this payment plan essentially. But it was also a win for the town or the cemetery board. So the cemetery board, in theory, kind of has this nest egg of money in perpetual reserves. But they really can't use it for anything. It's very limited in how you can use it. In fact, you can't buy equipment, you can't use that money to pay for grass cutters. The only thing that money can be used for is to earn interest and investment income. And then they can use the interest and investment income to pay for operational costs. So when the town, it's time to collect these drain payments from property owners. We have some property owners who don't want to make the payment. The town is expecting that cash to be replenished because we've already paid for these drains, like the construction 2 years ago, and we're finally getting around to collecting the money. So property owners don't want to make the payments right now. Cemetery board has a bunch of cash they can't really use for anything else, but they wouldn't mind earning a little more interest on it. So we borrow that money from the cemetery board to fill the town's hole of cash. And then as the property owners pay it, then we pay back the cemetery board. So it was a win for the property owners and a win for the cemetery board. Now 2023, it's finally happened. We have all these construction projects that are coming due. And there wasn't enough money to borrow from the cemetery board because the debentures were so high. So now so we have this hole that we're trying to fill with payments from property owners. We couldn't borrow that from the cemetery board. So now we're just using town reserves or infrastructure reserves to fund this for the property owners. So that's why it's changed a little bit. And that's why this report is coming to you. It's no longer a win-win per se, not to say that we shouldn't offer the service anymore, but we need direction on. So if we don't have the cemetery funds to borrow, then do we use town reserves? Do we want to use that infrastructure money? Are we going to tie it up in case something does come up that we want to use those funds for something else? Should we borrow it from an outside source? And if we are going to use infrastructure funds, how do we limit that so that we still have most of those reserves available to us for the projects that we want to complete in the coming years? So that's what's kind of triggered this report. And so that's why we've always done it in the past. That's not always necessarily the reason to continue to do it.
Mr. Belgian?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for that. And I know we had that conversation late last year too. And I think you're right, Councilor Wolf, it's obviously a sensitive topic because some people, it is a challenge, especially those large bills with farmers. But I guess why I went to the stage approach was just instead of ripping the Band-Aid off and not offering it, if there's a way to try to stop the bleeding. And I think these recommendations, for the most part, help address that, especially adjusting the timing collection. The one thing I would be really worried about, especially after that conversation, is I don't know if we would want to tie up loans through Infrastructure Ontario for this. I don't see that being a win for the municipality as a whole at all. So I would be very careful about getting in a position where we need to use that for this purpose, because that's not what, in my opinion, what we should be taking loans out through IO for. So good discussion. That's kind of where I'm at.
Mr. Beatty?
He pretty much said it all.
That's a short.
Go to me first and then him. You'll have smarter things to say after I say mine. I see it, we're not a bank. we're doing reserves and everything else for projects we know that are coming down the pipe. And like I say, now we're getting handcuffed by the fact that we're borrowing money so people can borrow money from us. Makes no sense to me at all.
Ms. Rodriguez. Oh, sorry, did you want to comment about that first?
No, I'll just,
Okay, Rodriguez.
Well, I would just like to reiterate, this is common practice in almost every municipality. It's not unusual. I think we're just in a growing pain here. I think, you know, maybe when we were a smaller town, that cemetery reserve was enough, but it's no longer enough. I mean, we have other healthy reserves, as it's noted. This money does come back. You've put in options for that money in and out to tighten it up. And I think keeping projects in step with cost recovery will also reduce that strain. And this chart here, it's over $7 million of projects. Not every project, probably almost none, have the total sum that would be eligible for debenture. So of the 4.7 million that you've noted here, compared to the 7,500,000, that only had 27% on average. 27% of 4 million. And then 8% of that, even if you doubled it to 17%, you're still looking at about 68,000 a year in possible debenture requests. And that's looking at it realistically from the statistics here. So I don't look at 4 million as the problem. I mean, and 68,000 is certainly doable with existing reserves. It's not all, I think getting that balance back between timelines of money coming in and projects then having to be expensed out maybe needs a little bit more balancing with the growing pains. And using a fund, which was noted here, the infrastructure fund, you know, might help alleviate that for long-term sustainability. This money isn't going out forever. And getting those quicker returns on it. It's just an in and out cash flow with a 2% to help offset the administration costs. That's how I look at it here.
Thank you. Ms. Rodriguez. Did you have another comment?
Move this one.
Mr. Van Claveren?
Mine.
And then Mr. Elizabeth, you had a comment to make?
I did, just more of a reminder that I'm sure the council doesn't recognize this, but people have quite a bit of notice before these bills come up as well. Like there's usually two, even though we are hoping to shorten up the time frame, there's still a year to 2 years. So it's not like you get a $1,000 bill or $1,500 bill plopped on you next week. I mean, people do have time to.
So any other comments?
Can I make just a recommendation to the mover for this motion, just to amend it by just suggesting that the policy review that they bring back, or sorry, the policy they bring back, if we can just have an option of what staff believes could be an alternative to number 5. I'm hearing 1 through 4, there's no real issues. So perhaps we can just, if they're bringing back a policy, just
Do
to
we
amend.
need that in the policy and the motion, or I think Christine is.
Well, it says that they're bringing back an updated assessment collection policy.
Okay, so what do you want me?
The majority of council wants a staggered approach. So from what I discussed and I heard, the only variation from that is Councilor Rodriguez suggested a $1,500 minimum, but then a different term. I've heard that a different term is administratively more challenging, given that we have everything in a tight schedule. So did we want to work our way up to 5,000, or did we just want to raise it to $1,500 and leave it? Those are the two options that I've heard that are feasible at the time.
Well, and if I may, again, farmers need larger amounts, But so do the smaller people, and I don't think one is any more important than the other. We're in a tight economy. There's already real life challenges out there. It's 13 people. That's not gonna make a huge dent in raising it to 5,000, in my opinion. It's such a small amount, and overall in general, but there are people who genuinely need it.
Mhm.
So I don't think we should discount them, and treat them equally as the, larger ones.
I think Christine is making note of that, and we'll be bringing that back in your comments in your next report. Am I correct?
Yes, so I think what I'm hearing is we could adjust the benefit value, but maybe only to 1,500. We could leave it at that. If we adjust the timing so that we start collecting these funds a little earlier without waiting for the grant to come back, that could bring the money in a year earlier. We could bill people on their property tax bills. If we maybe aren't as, if we increase the interest rate to the maximum that we could, that may deter some people from doing it, but also protect us for if the interest rate in our bank account increases, then we're losing it on the revenue. So that might will help with this. Just getting the direction from council on where they want the funding sources to come from. And yep, just clarifying which properties are eligible to debenture. So I think those four should really tighten up the timelines for collecting the cash. And if we leave it at 1,500 as the minimum debenture value, we could leave it like that and we could reevaluate in a year or two. And if we're finding that we don't have enough infrastructure money, then we could reevaluate and look at stopping debentures at that point if necessary.
Mr. Bougen, do you still feel we need to amend this?
No, I'm good with that. We can try that and see if we stop the bleeding.
So staff recommended under number 5 that the minimum bench should be 5,000. I'm hearing generally that council's comfortable with 1,500 for the short term. And if we see that that is not suitable, we can bring a report back to council and review this minimum debenture value at a later date.
No, so I won't be changing this motion. And are there any other comments while we're on the subject? Yes, Mr. Wolfett.
I'm certainly not a mathematician, but still bothers me. And I don't know where we're going with this and how much of our infrastructure money we're gonna draw off or go get a bank loan. That's gonna have to be a decision made because our infrastructure here, we were looking at plus $10 million. That's already a couple of years ago, over the next 10 years, just to get our infrastructure in shape. And we've been budgeting accordingly for infrastructure money to do that, to use those reserves. Now we're sitting possibly talking about using that infrastructure money to loan out to people. You know, like I said, I'm not a mathematician and I don't know which way to go here, but using the infrastructure money to me, I'm just not so sure it's the right thing to do, that's all. And I don't know how quick this $4 million over the next, how many years, but you're the experts on that, not me, but it's something we need to think about. What we're using up for infrastructure.
So
Thanks.
Councilor Walden, thanks very much for the comments. Under the average debenture of 8.3%, the total potential debenture value over the next 3 years could be just under 400,000. So that is not a massive hit. However, yes, if every person who is eligible to venture under this policy did so, it would be closer to just under 2 million. So there, we also have to fund that money as it passes through our financial system. So there's strain there too. But the monies we'd be loaning to private individuals would only be between the 1.8-ish million and the around 400,000.
That's something you guys got to figure out, I guess.
And year to year, we would hear back from property tax owners who wants to debenture. If there is enough money in the cemetery perpetual reserves, as that money is repaid, that would be our go-to. That's the first option. So we would still utilize the cemetery reserve money first. It's just if too many people want to debenture, then that's when we would dip into the infrastructure reserves to borrow that.
We have, my understanding, we have a debenture coming due in the cemetery this year, Norma. We discussed that, yeah, so we may have some money to loan. I'm not sure of the figures, doesn't matter here tonight, but okay. As long as you use ours first, being chair of the cemetery, kind of.
Look at that.
20%.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you. I guess my question is, didn't you not say the money that's in, what happens to the interest money earned in the cemetery reserve? What happens to that? Is that also restrictive on how you can use that interest revenue?
No, the interest that's earned on the perpetual care is allowed to be used for cemetery operations.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if there's no other questions or explanations, maybe we would draw an end to this. Is everyone in favor of Christine bringing back an updated policy? Everyone? Okay, carried, thank you. All right, we're on the Canton drain collection. Moved by Mr. Vaizey, second by Mr. Bougen, that election bylaw 133 of 2023 for the Canton drain be approved and taken as read 3 times, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign accordingly, and that a pro rata levy be imposed on the ratepayers according to the attached schedule of assessment, which will be collected in the manner outlined within the bylaw. Do you have any comments on this, Elizabeth, or it's pretty straightforward? And do we have any questions from council? No questions. Is everyone in favor? Carried, thank you. Moved by Mr. Van Claveren, second by Bob Wolfett, that bylaw 113 of 2023 for the Falconer Ramsey Drain and the Aberarder Creek being a bylaw to provide for drainage works in the town of Plympton-Wyoming and the county of Lamb be taken as having been read a 3rd time and finally passed on this 13th day of December 2023, and the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the said bylaw accordingly. Any questions or comments? None? Everyone in favor? Okay, carried, thank you. Moved by Mr. Vaizey, second by Mr. Bougen, that bylaw 114 of 2023 for the McAndrew Drain, KIF branch, being a bylaw to provide for drainage works in the town of Plympton-Wyoming in the county of Lambton be taken as having been read a 3rd time and finally passed on this 13th day of December 2023, and the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the said bylaw accordingly. Any questions on this one? None? And so everyone in favor? Carried, thank you. Well, talked enough about drainage, haven't we? Correspondence. Action required. Correspondence clerk?
No action
None?
required.
Okay. What about recommended reading? So moved by Mr. Vaizey, second by Mr. Van Claveren, that the correspondence items A to L relating to recommended reading and routine approval and information items not otherwise addressed by resolution be noted as received by the Plympton-Wyoming Council and filed accordingly. Does anyone have any remarks on some of these pieces of correspondence? Ms. Rodriguez?
Thank you. Oops. Item H, MOE consultation, natural gas expansion, and heating affordability. If I may ask, I'm not sure. Are you familiar with this registry?
Not off the top of my head, but I can definitely look into it further.
I guess it looks. They may be taking comments on the need for natural gas expansion in rural and northern communities. It wasn't totally clear on it. I mean, obviously this expansion here, it's been difficult to get. I'm not sure if this might be a route that we could provide comment to.
Can definitely do a little bit further research, and if there is a need to bring back a potential motion or discussion at council level to send a letter of support or to expression of interest, we can do so.
Okay, thank you. The deadline was,
First way down.
yeah, that's what,
Rounds it up. I'm just checking the date of that.
because there was a deadline.
Deadline's December 15th.
Remember what?
15th this Friday.
So
So
I am well aware of the need of our rural community members to have natural gas. Natural gas is a little bit difficult to obtain for our rural property owners. I will look up on this tomorrow and provide comments reassuring our position that we want to see natural gas be made available to all of our rural residents.
Thank you.
okay, so what do I do with that? Leave it out or he's looking?
It's fine as is,
something
we're
the way it is?
receiving it.
Okay. Mr. Bowden, did you?
I just wanted to bring attention for council to item J. I know staff's definitely already on top of it. But that Supreme Court decision is a huge, huge deal in the municipal world. So if council hasn't already, it's a good thing to look into when it comes to municipal liability and risk.
Thank you. And Mr. Vazy, you had some,
That's the one I was
okay. And
gonna cost us.
Mr. Bansky, I think, has a comment about it.
And actually, I just spoke to our insurance broker today with Norma. They are going to be providing a follow-up on this matter. They plan to release one of their, what they refer to as a white paper, which will be reviewing the court case and explaining how that will affect municipalities moving forward. We will be sure to provide that white paper to council under recommended reading at a future agenda, along with potential mitigation measures which we could do to minimize our liability.
Thank you. Okay, everyone's digesting those comments and are you all in favor of filing or receiving these pieces of correspondence? Are you all in favor? Thank you. Okay. New business. Anyone have any new business? We'll start with Ms. Rodriguez.
I did. Thank you. And it's just food for thought, really. I was thinking about, we had spoke to how do we better engage our community on a few occasions. And utilizing our Facebook page, we do emails. We send out emails after council meetings, giving highlights. I would like personally, if everybody would consider anyway, putting out highlights of upcoming council meetings before they happen, and like a quick, maybe of interest to you, and posting that, and that's just another way of getting information out to the community through social media, because that seems to be a popular go-to, and easy. So before agenda, giving people a heads up of highlights of what's coming up or a few things, maybe, I don't know, and please go here to find the full agenda. And then also putting the highlights of decisions afterwards or directions afterwards, also posting those as well.
And I'm not trying to downplay what you're suggesting, but that will take more
I know.
time, of course, and not only that, if somebody is interested, they can look at the agenda too themselves,
True, but you can just say, got an upcoming meeting on these items, please go see the agenda, something very quick, not that it's cumbersome or takes time. And in the follow-up, where you send emails, literally, that's just a screenshot that you pasted, really. So I don't want it to be too cumbersome. I don't want to take up too much time, but I think they're just an idea.
So.
I'm looking at my clerk because her department would be responsible for any and all of that, so. My thoughts are a link to the committee agenda would be the simplest. If we had to prepare a specific summary of the agenda for Facebook, you're getting into more time because you're wordsmithing it, you're taking out the key points, you're deciding what is key points and then putting it into Facebook. Whereas if we could simply send out a message on Facebook, upcoming council agendas available, see the links. That might get people's attention. And then when we release the council review or highlights, we can also link that PDF back. So that would be the simplest and least time consuming way to add those items to Facebook.
Yes, and that's great. I was just concerned that you wouldn't be able to put links on, but I guess you could, because you're not news, you're government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Thank you. Mr. Veazey.
Good evening, how are you? I just wanted to comment on the Christmas for everyone, or village, Christmas in the village. How well our staff worked that day, like everything was done. Everything we needed was done smoothly. I had comments told to me afterwards that, you know, just how well our small town runs. And it was off. I don't know what the percentage would be, but there was a lot of out of towners that came to it and couldn't believe we put that little thing on and it's all free.
Oh, yeah.
And like I said, the barricades we needed, the road closures we needed, everything just works. So
Ran very smoothly.
it did.
You know.
So thank you to everybody.
Good. Do you have anything, Mr. Belgian?
Yeah, just one thing. I just want to bring attention to, just because I've been getting a lot of emails about continued traffic concerns in Kamlaki. I've been letting them know the same message that we've been given from MP, that it's best to submit through their online portal when it comes to that type of concern, because it's specifically, and I've seen it myself, it's the construction trucks down Fleming and down Egremont in front of the school. So I know staff are also working on a staff report with traffic calming measures in the hamlet. So just maybe something that we can consider in that staff report, is just that in front of the public schools specifically. But I just wanted to bring it forward.
So that would expand the previous direction of council. The previous direction of council was look at Egremont Road within the hamlet of Kamlaki. If council would also like us to include traffic calming measures on Egremont Road in the area of Arrow Village, specifically to school, and potentially then Kamlaki Road inside the hamlet of Kamlaki, we can do so, provided council as a whole is comfortable with that. I think I need to amend the motion, but just a level of comfort from the rest of council that we will be expanding staff resources to increase that study.
Mr. Veazey?
Is the school zone, you know, where they double the fines and everything? I don't know what they call it, the community safety zone.
So there's two and designated as a school zone, which absolutely does double fines. And then you can also designate the community safety zone. The processes are slightly different and the fines are slightly different, but both options are available to us.
I guess my question for, so I guess to get a better idea of what the report you're bringing, is it obviously specific to the hamlet, but is it going to be, here's the pros and cons of speed humps, here's the pros and cons of stop signs, here's the pros and cons, like, is that what the staff report is? Because if so, then I'm fine with leaving it the same, because then we can just put our brains together and say, hey, maybe that'll work in front of the public school as well. Like, or is it super specific and it's not all?
No, it would be more the pros and cons. However, what we would consider for Hamlet would likely be different than what we consider in front of the school. So if you'd like specifically us to look at the school area, I think we should make sure that it's wholesome due to the presence of the kids.
I'd be willing to move that motion and to expand it.
Do we need a motion?
I think you said you. I thought you said
You
we-
were already doing your report. So I think we don't necessarily need a motion, but if council seems to be nodding their heads to expand it to Arrow Village School area, I'm comfortable with that, and Mr. DeSilva will be working on the report for the new year.
We've even working on Paul.
You have more new business, Ms. Rudd.
No, I just had a question. Do we not already have those types of enforcement in place at schools in Plympton-Wyoming?
What types of enforcement, Madam Counselor?
Yeah, those things.
The zone.
Not necessarily.
Oh.
There is a process to go through to implement them and bylaws. I don't think we have them involved in all schools. So that will be definitely one thing we'd want to look at.
I think so. With the growing population, I think it would be for the children.
I know something that really slows things down is when you park your car out in the street. So there's a lot of people.
Oh, for school.
Not anywhere.
Oh.
Especially
Oh, I
in
see what
Finland.
you're saying.
Yes, those people close the trucks down very much.
Didn't spend money on it yet, but one thing that has been in the back of my mind that I haven't transferred to Paul yet. As Errol Village area grows, there was the identified need for a potential PXO system in that area. The council at the time in 2017 decided not to move forward with it, but we may want to look up the requirements for a PXO. I think we can do that in-house, do a brief traffic count in the area and see if we're close to those warrants. So we would probably do a bit of a study in that regards, especially if and when the Key Home subdivision develops, there will be a walkway that exits out right at the school. And that might facilitate the need for a more controlled crossing. So I think what we'll do is definitely broaden our research and check into also crossing requirements near the school, given our growing population.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Van Claveren, you have any new business?
Good discussion tonight.
Mr. Wilbur?
I'd just like to thank council for the condolences on the passing of my father-in-law at 100 years old. I really appreciate all the emails and the thoughts, as my wife appreciated it. And I would like to say, I don't know where this year has disappeared to, but this is our first year on council and our final meetings. I'd like to thank all my colleagues here. It's worked fine. I think we've worked well together. And we got another 3 years to go, so hope that can keep up. So thank you, everyone, for doing what you do.
Those are nice comments.
Very nice.
Yeah.
You should give him a big hug.
Yeah, you should.
I know what daddy will get me.
We can't reach them. Go ahead.
John?
Okay, so that takes care of the new business. What about any staff? You have any new business?
Me, your worship.
Nothing. So we will now move into a closed meeting session and we'll be offline for a little bit. While we're at it, right? And then we'll come back. Moved by Ms. Rodriguez, second by Mr. Van Claveren, that council move into an in-camera meeting of council pursuant to section 239 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended. For the following reasons: item A, solicitor client privilege. Section 2392F, advice that is subject to solicitor client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. And item B, personnel matters, personal or personnel? Personal matters. Section 239(2)B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. All in favor? Carried.